forget about you, then you are nobody. Then you are nobody. Remember.
All is One Reflections. All is One Reflections. I am Priestess Osun Funke, and today I'm going to do a class talking about divination, destiny, and ancestral healing. And this is going to be one of my more metaphysical classes with concepts that join conventional science, metaphysical science, and African traditional religion and indigenous peoples' thought and magical systems together to create what I hope are right now solutions and understandings for moving forward in light of this new information. I am joined today by my goddaughter and co host, Priestess Osun Kemibi.
All is One Reflections, and we're so glad to have you here today. Go ahead and let us know that you are here. Drop some honey pots for me and sunflowers for my yay as we bring in some collective understanding about what it really means to align with destiny and ancestral healing through the concepts of metaphysics and as well as our doctrine within Orisa Hoodoo. Within the description, you will see books that we will reference throughout the lecture to help you align. Get Your Life will be the first one, as that is our doctrine of Orisha Hoodoo. You will also see Fire and Flame, which speaks about how to spark out manifestation and how to really align with those energies, and Ways of the Water, because we know we must be fluid in this life. Okay, so as we speak, if there's anything that is ringing to you, that aligns with you, that you want to know more, go ahead, join our community, which is also in the chat and on the banner below, as well as in the description. We're going to head and get started, and we're just going to get a few media clips to really set the tone for what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so just give us a moment.
always talking about ancestral healing, and I always tell my students and clients the best way to heal your ancestors is to heal yourself. Well, I've been studying some research studies done by physicists that actually give credence to that. In 2012, a team in Vienna led by a scientist named Anton Zeiliger, who is a Nobel Prize winner, he confirmed an earlier study done by John Wheeler about the delayed choice theory through the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment. And this experiment was published in Nature Physics. The study that they did showed that the way we measure a particle now appears to affect how it behaved in the past. Their work was also confirmed in labs in South Korea in the year 2000 and then again in the US in 2007, establishing this theory and understanding as real and repeatable phenomena. So basically, a particle being observed can change the way it behaved in the past. So for people studying African spirituality, which centers on cycles of time, ancestral memory, and destiny written before our birth, this experiment gives scientific language to what we've already known. It reminds us that what looks fixed in the past may still be influenced by present alignment, ritual, and even decision making. For diviners and healers, this means that the work that we do today can ripple backward to heal ancestors, ancestral wounds, and calm that energy, making it more accessible to us. And that same energy, those same decisions, ripple forward to strengthen our lineage. Okay, so that is the scientific background that this talk is going to be largely based on today. So there was a scientific study done, and the question, the research question there was, does the way we look at something, in this case it was particles, change the way it seems to behave in the past? So I am a metaphysicist, a metaphysician, and I also study the way particles behave. So the question that I'm going to add on to that is, does the way we look at things through mechanisms like divination change the way things behave as we go forward, right? So in the study that was mentioned, scientists used a laser, and more importantly, they shone light through a laser, which created a laser beam. They directed the laser, or the light, the beam of light, into a special crystal, and this crystal was called a beta barium borate, okay, or a BBO. Inside this crystal, one photon of light split into two photons, okay? So back up, there's a crystal, right? Big old expensive crystal. And a ray of light was shown through the crystal. On the other side of this crystal, the rays of light or the particles split into two, okay? And those particles are now twin particles. Think twins, cosmic twins, like Ibeji, perhaps, or which are an Orisa, right? Or even concepts like Egbe mirror this phenomenon because these now two particles are forever linked, like you are with your Egbe, right? And Egbe is a Yoruba term meaning heavenly mates. Okay, so you have different kinds of Egbe. You have the Egbe that are said to have been created at the same time you were, your heavenly Egbe. And then you have different earthly Egbe. people who you work with, people you go to school with, people you grow up on the same street as, right? These different circumstances that create your bond with that person determine your entanglement, okay? And so remember that, because we're going to talk about it later. So these twin particles now on the other side of that crystal are now entangled, meaning they are permanently linked or connected. No matter how far apart they are, they share the same memory, okay? Because they were born from the same photon, or created at the same time, or initiated together, or born on the same street, or into the same family, these things that create entanglement. So in this scenario, the crystal was the medium that made the entanglement possible. In science, the crystal's unique structure allowed one photon to become two. In spirituality, crystals are known for storing energy, recording memory, and amplifying our intention. I wear a crystal every day, all the time, right? I use this crystal for divination mostly, but it is also a record keeper, right? If you look on the back of this crystal, I don't know if you can actually see the texture here. My camera is not that detailed, but it has grooves on it, like a record. And this particular type of crystal is called a record keeper because it records information. So crystals do a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to spiritual work, and even science. Your phone is working right now because of a crystal. The laptop, the laptop that I'm using, and so on and so forth. Crystals everywhere. Just as people charge crystals with prayer, the lab crystal charged the photons with a connection that could not be broken. So the connection was literally part of the fabric of the creation of these entangled particles. Okay. This is evidence that crystals are active participants in holding and transforming energy. So this is not a crystal class, but it's important to understand that it was, in fact, a crystal that made this experiment possible, and allow this to inform your regard with crystals. I know people think crystals are kind of woo-woo and we may not understand how they work. You may or may not be sensitive to them, but crystals are very important. And in this case, they were the technology used to create entangled particles. After creating the twin photons, with the crystal, the scientists set up two different paths, okay? One path they measured right away. So they measured the photons to see what they were doing and record any interesting information about those photons. And then pathway B was delayed, sent through a long fiber so that it would reach its detector later. Okay, so you have photon A that was measured right away, and then you have photon B that is sent down a longer road. Imagine twins born at the same time to the same parents in the same home, but they go down different roads in their lifetime, right? They don't make the same decisions. They don't have the same opportunities. Forever linked because they're twins, but different lifestyles, different life paths, and therefore possibly different outcomes, okay? So the key trick was that the scientists did not decide how to measure photon B until after photon A had already been recorded. Okay, so they measured A first, no matter what. They said, okay, you're first, you're number one, we're gonna measure you. Okay, let's see how tall you are. Let's see how wide you are. Let's see what your temperature is. Let's get a gauge on where you are in this moment. Okay, and then after we send photon B down this long fiber, this long road in life, we're going to measure photon B. And when they did, They kept its path information. They kept its path information, which means that they would know exactly which way it traveled. Okay, so they followed it, they observed it, they didn't interfere, they watched it do its thing, meander along this long fiber. And then they erased its path information, meaning they would not know which way it had traveled. So they knew that it came from afar, but they didn't pay attention to how it got there. Once it arrived at the measuring spot, at the detector, that is when they took their measurements. So this meant that they weren't observing the path, they weren't influencing the path, they only measured it once it got there. What does that kind of sound like, right? That sounds like a God who creates people, allowing them to have their individual experiences, allowing them to make choices and move through life and do what they have chosen to do and respond to stimuli the way that they will. And in the end, when you make it home, as the old folks would say, at the end of your life, you are measured. Your heart is weighed against a feather. So many layers to this experiment as it relates to life and our spiritual practices. But let's keep going. So when the scientists looked back at photon A and the results, they discovered that photon A's earlier behavior matched the choice that they made for photon B, even though photon A had already been measured. So what that means is they measured photon A and they filed those measurements, okay? And then they sent photon B down this windy road and they measured photon B once it arrived at the same place where photon A was measured. But now photon A changed in response to the road that photon B had taken. Y'all following me? Okay. Okay, so to put it simply, the earlier measurement that was taken of photon A seemed to wait for the later decision before showing its final pattern. Okay. Now, what does that mean? The strange link between the two photons is called entanglement. No matter how far apart they are, their outcomes remain connected. In the Yoruba understanding, we would say that destiny, and the word for that is ayanmo, okay? Ayanmo. So destiny is like this kind of entanglement. Before birth, your Ori chose your destiny in Orun, or the physical realm, right? And this destiny is already written. That path is already determined, much like the path of photon B in the experiment. But along this path here in Earth, I'm sorry, y'all, I said something wrong. Your Ori was chosen in Orun, which is heaven. And so your Ori chose your path in Orun, which is heaven. I think I might have said the physical world, because Aye is the physical world. And along the path that you choose, the choices that you make in this physical world here on earth, you change your experience and you make changes that may affect your destiny, but they don't affect your final destination. The photons do not lose their connectivity. They simply show different patterns depending on the choices and the way those choices are measured. In the same way, you do not lose your destiny, but your experience shifts depending on how you align with your Ori and how you live in balance and how you answer the call of your destiny. And the main point that I want to discuss here is how observation might change the path that a person is on. How observation may change the way we experience the path or the past or the way we measure it. How observation, also known as divination, may change the way we anticipate the future or the way we interact with it when we encounter it. The experiment of the science that the scientists did of the particles and their relationship to the past basically says that looking at something influences the outcomes that we are able to record and measure. Reality does not fully exist in one form until it is observed. All kinds of things happened in the past. More situations happened in the past with your ancestors and even with your own parents or your dearly departed, those who you knew in this lifetime. We knew them for the time period that we know them. We knew them in the ways that we interact with them, but their lives were varied. And there were aspects to their lives that we would never know. And until we are encountered with information about how they came to be, who we knew them to be, AKA measured them to be, then we're unaware of, oh, maybe that's why my grandmother was always afraid of dogs, because she watched a younger sibling be attacked by dogs. So all this time we thought that she was mean. We thought that she was silly. We thought that she was a little bit paranoid because that little chihuahua is not going to hurt you. But once you understand that she may have been traumatized by something, she may have been deeply affected by something she experienced, then the way you look at the past, the way you understand the past is now different. And so going forward, because you heard about the trauma that your grandmother experienced, now going forward, you may be more cautious when it comes to dogs, particularly if that trauma led to someone being severely injured or hurt, right? So in an instant, observing a particle of the past can change at that same moment how we move going forward or how the future lays out. Does that make sense? You understand? Okay. So reality does not fully exist in one form until it is actually observed. Until then, many possibilities are alive and possible all at once. It depends on what you look at, what there is for you to measure. It depends on what you look at, the connectivity of events, themes, curses even, right? So when we're talking about generational curses, if we don't understand the origin of an event, then trying to measure it or estimate its effect on the future, that's very difficult to do. So as priests and as practitioners of African spirituality, you need to understand that we live a life that is interdimensional. We occupy the eternal now always. There's no way around that. But we are also linked to the past because we are entangled. We are entangled with those particles that we were created with, right? If at the time that everything that ever existed was created, right? If everything happened all at once, some things remained in the spiritual realm, some things were in the physical realm, but everything was created at once, then those entanglements are going to exist no matter what form as we fluctuate. We know in Ifa that earth is but a marketplace, right? That is what we are taught. That is one of the 16 tenets. Earth is but a marketplace. So even when you are on this earth, even when you are living amongst other living people, you are still entangled with those particles that you were created with, if this entire world was created at one time, right? Or at the same time. So these are things for you to think about, particularly those of you who are priests and do Divination. So let's apply some of these concepts to divination, which is really what I wanted to get into. Divination works the same way the observation works in the scientific study that I've been talking about. There are many possible paths that exist for a person, for a family, or for a community until the oracle is consulted. So there are so many different streams of possibilities, different timelines, different planes that have yet to unfold, different strings that exist. But once those bones are thrown, once those cards are flipped, then that information and those realities start to organize in a way that we are able to see, measure, and understand them. Once the divination is cast, awareness is created. The oracle has now measured the energy, and now it's static. Now it will be unchanged within the view of this reading, this moment in time. Do you understand that? Awareness itself changes the paths of people in particular, because most of the time we're doing readings on people, okay? So awareness itself will actually change the paths available to people, particularly the person who is sitting down to have the divination done. The act of sitting in front of the diviner changes the possible paths that they have available to them. Not the existence of paths, but the awareness of those paths. So if I'm sitting down and I'm having a divination and the diviner says, well, listen, you can go left or you can go right or you can sit still, then those are now my only options, right? However, prior to that divination, I could have gone left, I could have gone right, I could have sat still, or I could have ran in place. But because the diviner did not make me aware of that, now that's not an option. Moving in place is no longer a possibility because it was not measured or revealed in the divination. Y'all picking up what I'm putting down? Okay. So awareness itself changes the path. So each year we do an annual divination, right? For the year, we do a divination within our collective. And the oracle reveals which Odu governs the year. Along with that, it describes an ebo or a sacrifice that must be done, which includes, rituals, behavior modifications, offerings, and so forth. We just kind of wrap a bow on it and call it a sacrifice. So a divination is done. An ebo is described. And the purpose of that ebo is to balance the energies of the year. Two things happen in what I just described. The path of the year now shifts to the awareness that we have been given by virtue of the reading. Okay. And the ebo now provides the opportunity to heal and to balance what was revealed in the consultation or the reading. Okay. Without the divination, people might walk blindly into the new year, repeating old cycles and patterns. But with the divination, observation has been created about new possibilities. And not only are new possibilities being considered, but now people have an awareness that the cycles that were discussed or revealed are now being healed by the energy that they are pushing towards those things. So In Yoruba cosmology, we have an understanding that we occupy three dimensions of existence. The Yoruba tradition teaches that life is experienced in the spiritual world, which is Orun, and life in this world is timeless and it is eternal. It is also authoritative, right? Having an effect on other aspects of life. Life in the physical world or the material world, which is bound by time and individual choices. And also, this overlaps with Ori, which is also authoritative, like Orun, but it is a personal deity. So its authority may not extend beyond the person who is governed by Ori, but this does affect choices. Okay, it affects a person's choice and it affects a person's understanding of available options. Think of your Ori as as having to do with the way you may hear a reading. Your Ori may govern your understanding of what you have become aware of. And then the final piece is your destiny, which by all accounts would be your future, the things that you will experience. Destiny is rarely used to refer to the past. It's usually, oh, that is destined to happen, okay? Or what you are destined to experience. Okay, Osun Kemibi.
All is one reflections. My name is Reverend Priestess Osun Kemibi Ifa Kemi. I am one of the goddaughters of Reverend Priestess Osun Funke iyanifa. And we are just going to keep on rolling with the understanding of how ancestral alignment and destiny affect us, specifically through the perspective and perception of metaphysics. It's important to understand that this consciousness that we're speaking about is the direct awareness that not only helps to rewrite your body actions, because we just spoke about how divination will provide the roadmap, okay, but also how it affects your bloodline now, hence, and forevermore. Okay, when we are speaking on the aspects of really knowing who we are, knowing what we came to do, we have to understand at the bare minimum that understanding reality is essential from both the scientific, spiritual, philosophical, and generally almost every perspective. It really is an interdisciplinary approach that we have to face, because it definitely reveals the layered and the multi-dimensional aspects of nature and the existence of it. So what am I saying? I'm saying that reality is not solely experienced through objective measurements or just a single belief. It's literally a synthesis of perception, of interaction, of interpretation. This means that a person's experience isn't really confined to one lens. Every encounter can and is interpreted through different disciplines, and each of these offer a unique reflection of truth. Throughout history, we see this. Civilizations have sought to understand the universe's order. Specifically, as practitioners and priests of Ifa, we understand and we recognize the mathematics of the universe. We understand that the science and the mathematics is not only of the universe, but is the language of the universe. We understand that for every action, there's a reaction, including the failure to act, and that affects our reality. So, because of this, we aim to exert maximum influence over these reactions by dedicated prayer and reading of energy divination and the manipulation of energy, which is what we spent most of our lecture going in detail of what that means. Okay. So, in order to remain in alignment within our destiny, we have to seek balance and make the necessary behavior modifications and sacrifice, which we do through study Orisa sciences, which we do by being accountable of our actions, which we do by being consistent with what we know we need to do by divination, through advice of our elders, through meditation, and through prayer. Okay, modern physicists, through the lens of quantum mechanics, explore the universe's inner workings of this at a microscopic scale. Okay, by they uncovering patterns of unpredictability, entanglement, and the influences of the observer. Both approaches, from the aspect of Orisha Hoodoo and that of quantum physics itself, were able to understand deeply the order, balance, and the reality, and how it's shaped reality and understanding across time. There is a conceptual belief in balance and in cosmic harmony that governs both the personal and societal well-being. And we understand that Orisha Hoodoo is a conceptual belief that has the balance of this cosmic harmony. Okay. We understand that through understanding the universe by walking and aligning and appeasing the forces of nature that we know to be Orisha, by living in alignment with the laws that govern this world, both of this world and of this world, meaning what our ancestors say, or spirit world, right? We know this to be true. Understanding that the interconnectedness of all of this help influence how we are supposed to go about our general perception or physiology of life. And you guys know I'm a I'm not a physicist, okay? I'm a biomedical health scientist. Let's be very clear. I'm a biomedical health scientist. And within this concept, I'm talking about the spiritual anatomy and physiology, which is the structure and the function of how to approach your awareness. Okay, starting with the general understanding, or just the core question: how does our observation influence our physical and our spiritual state? Okay, observation is not just something that is passive, it's active engagement. It's things that affect us, again, spiritually, mentally, physiologically, physically. Okay, and in a metaphysical terms, we understand at the very center of this, the law of vibration has its own frequency, where everything has its own frequency. When we focus our attention, we can influence these frequencies, whether they can lead to balance or resistance. This aligns the observer, the diviner, the priest, of how to understand the altered states of what is being observed. Okay. From a Yoruba perspective, we understand that this is the concept of Ori, and how Ori is a vital role in everything that we say, do, or think. We cannot even pray to Osun and believe that things will be done without going through Ori first. I mean, you can, but it's not going to manifest well in the ways that you think it will. Simply put, because you must honor your Ori before you honor any Orisha. Head of, that's what Orisha is, okay? Even the Orisha have Ori. So if Oshun, if Ogun, if Shango sees that you are not being aware and meditating and sitting down, cleansing and feeding Ori, if you are not taking time to divine with Ori, to be in alignment, to making sure that you're doing what you need to do and being consistent in the process, how is that going to translate to the other forces of energy, forces of nature that you are trying to petition? That is bad math. And that is the center of what we are talking about today. Understand from a biological point of view that when we have a focused observation, it definitely influences our pathways. It affects our responses. And it's important, again, that we are being mindful within our meditation. We're being mindful to our body, making sure that our cortisol levels are in check. We're making sure that we are in tune with the aspects of neuroplasticity, meaning that you understand that everything begins with a thought. So you are not saying or thinking things that don't engage with what you want to experience. That is how we have a profound effect within our physical state. So the key idea here, again, is that the perception is the physiology or the function with how you go about it. Understanding that when you look at something with intention, whether it be your lover, because we know all the good things that come up when you look at your lover, all the intent that follows that, whether you want to get married, fuck, or just have a good time, the intent is there because you called that to be so. In your mind, you made that agreement. That's why you get butterflies in your stomach when you see that boo thing. But also understanding that with the same aspect, you're the observation, yes, that's a thing, but also the activation. Okay. So those new signals that arise, again, I just gave butterflies in your stomach as one of those things. I just gave, that bubbly feeling that you get when your hormones start going, right? That's your perception. Also understanding that your energy, and again, your energy really reflects how you are going to receive these perceptions. They're going to affect, again, if you act or don't act, move quickly or not at all. That breath of life, the hydration, the heartbeat, literally the same things that we use within ritual. Because you got to have, that strong breath to pray. We have our cool water before we start our rituals. And we know our heart has to, our heart and breath have to be in it when we pray to really ignite and really involve what you want to move. Because, if your prayer isn't together, the rest of the ritual will not manifest the well that you intend. And you don't need a lab crystal to prove the entanglement that's going on wherever. When you at the core are your own crystal, literally over 60% water, your own structured water carrying divine light. So the way that you perceive things must be in a functional manner so you can align with your greatest good at all times. So you are not moving too far to the left or too far to the right where things are looking crazy. This is what we're talking about here. We have our own power to really correct some of the energies that we are also in contact with. Some of us, we know these as behavior modifications, when we know we need to fast for a certain amount of days or wear a certain color, abstain from sex, increase meditation or prayer regimens. These are all affecting your perception to create the reality that you want to. And when you start to do this, again, at the atomic level, there's changes vibrating within you. Your Ori allows that. So everything else can manifest the way that you need to. One of the main verses that is very important and that I always give my students when they first start out is Romans 12:2. When we talk about being transformed with the power of your mind, okay? Be transformed through the power of your mind. And when we speak on that again, we are speaking about that new thought, that new wiring, how you will allow yourself to go through something. We talk about understanding that the way we observe our medicine is the way that we are able to see ourselves whole. It is the way that we allow our body to move and the way that we are able to show up for ourselves and those around us. What's important to understand that when we are going through changes, integrations, seasons, because we literally just had a season shift from summer to fall equinox. We're literally about to enter a super moon. We are literally in Hoodoo Heritage Month, where you know the veil is thin as hell. So be aware and mindful of how your observation is influencing your physical or spiritual states. Your spirit ear might be tingling a little bit more during prayer and meditation. Physically, you might get hot, for example. And if you're having these changes and you don't know what that means, make sure that you are sitting with me, my mother, one of my sisters. We are all here to help. Literally, in my mentorship, these are one of the first things that we go through within the integration of starting your spiritual journey, because we know that all is one and this is not a lifestyle. I mean, this is a lifestyle. This is not a hobby, meaning that we aren't just doing it when we want something. We're doing it consistently. And we're always remembering that because this is a lifestyle, we will take it just as seriously as we do clocking into work, just as we do doing whatever things that we can just do naturally. We would have to find that same, we would have to have that same energy with this. Yeah.
People are always talking. Okay, that was awesome, Osun Kemibi. So I want to recap just a tiny bit because this is going to be the jump off for how I bring this all home. So I want you to think about the three dimensions that we occupy. We could say past, the land of the ancestors. We could say the present, which is the eternal now. And we could say the future, the world that our descendants will occupy. We could also say Orun, the spiritual world that is timeless and authoritative and exists somehow apart from us, but also within us, right? We also have Aye, which is life here on earth in the physical realm, the material world, where we are bound by time and space and our choices. And then finally, we have the dominion of Ori, which is the magic behind the moments that we experience, where the future is promised and guaranteed by our obedience, but it's still somehow just out of our reach. And then running through all of those dimensions, like a current, is destiny, right? What was written, what we were intended to experience in this and every other incarnation, because destiny is a theme of existence, really. Okay, so these are the dimensions that we occupy, and we influence one from the other, one as a part of another, one subject to the other. Our ancestors are not gone. Our ancestors remain entangled with us. We are the ancestors returned. I don't know how many of you have had the unique experience of watching a baby play with someone that you can't see, looking above them and giggling, or chitter chattering away with someone who they're obviously responding to, but we don't know who that is. And elders would say it's because they have more recently left the spiritual realm. They're still connected to those souls that they are entangled with, right? And as we become more aware, as we learn things, we forget others, and those connections are not as strong. We can no longer interact with our Egbe and those spirits that we incarnated with, and those friends that we have that are back in a room. Okay. But the ancestors are not gone. They remain entangled with us. Ancestral healing is a goal that many people have. It's also a buzzword, and it's a collection of activities that people engage in, trying to, with the hopes of influencing outcomes for themselves and their descendants. And it's noble. But the truth about ancestral healing is the most effective way to heal your ancestors is to heal yourself. When you, and it is a delicate dance, and it is a sophisticated collection of activities that look like divination, ritual, shadow work, divination, ritual, shadow work, right? But when you look into your ancestry, really look with divine eyes, and you perform divination without attachment to the details of what you find, when you are willing to look at the truth about who those people were who came before you, and what they endured and what they experienced, and how that is affecting you now, and how it will affect those who come after you if you don't do anything about it. When you're willing to do that work and to divorce yourself from these notions that you may have had of being royalty, and divorce yourself from these notions that you may have had about your bloodline being above certain activities or behaviors or experiences, when you are willing to just do the math and just see what is there and understand how that is affecting you, how it affected them, and how those effects you're experiencing in your life now. And for you to be empathetic enough to think about those coming after you and understand how they will be affected if you don't do your work. When you're ready to do all of that, then divinations look a little bit different. And healing looks a little bit different, because you know that you have got to heal. You've got to say that happened and that was fucked up. And because that terrible thing happened, I'm like this. But I don't have to stay like this. because I have tools that can help me fix whatever this is. And when I do that, I'm going to make sure that they can do better. Y'all, that's the assignment. That's what we came here to do. That's the point of it all. To do better than they did, understanding that they did the best that they could, not being angry at our ancestors, not judging our ancestors, but understanding that it's a walk and we are all walking it. And they did what they could do in the time that they had to do it. And now we are going to do better so that those coming after us can do even better. It's like a parent telling a child, don't do as I do what I say. I'm doing the best that I can. I'm doing what I gotta do, but you can do better. That's the point of understanding what interdimensional living is all about. That's the point of understanding what ancestral healing is all about. You want to heal your ancestors, you need to heal yourself. So we live interdimensionally. The triumphs of our ancestors are our triumphs because we don't have to go back and run those races that have already been ran or won, right? If you're able to tap into that ancestral memory, that ancestral cloud of consciousness, then you can use their understandings and their triumphs as you continue to walk. And if you are blessed, you'll walk a few steps further than they did, unencumbered, uninjured, without gaping holes in your soul. You'll be able to walk further and you'll have a better time doing it. And your children will see you walking with pep in your step, motivated and excited for what comes next. And you'll be able to build more and acquire more spiritual territory, greater healing, and deeper understanding. The ancestors are not gone. You are the ancestors. Ancestral wounds, you carry them. They may not be gaping. They may have been stitched up a little bit. You may have found ways to disguise our limp, but they're still there. The work is to heal those wounds, to address them, to become aware of them, because we know that awareness does what? It changes things. It gives us opportunity to heal. It gives us power. Knowledge is power, even knowledge of the past. So Ifa divination in particular works very much like what was described in the experiment. There are many possible outcomes. Think of them as Odu. We know there are 256 conditions of man, no more. Now, within each one of those conditions, there are nuanced experiences, which would be the verses that we encounter when we're encountering the Ifa liturgy, right? But the conditions of man are decidedly 256, okay? 256 different kinds of things that can happen to a person. So there are many, many possibilities. But once Ifa is casted, whatever tool is used to do that, whether it is the sacred palm kernels or the diviner's chain or the cowrie shells, whatever tool is used, what results from that casting is awareness. The act of measuring a moment results in all of those other possibilities falling to the wayside and us being firmly grounded in this moment, in this reality. But understand now, the possibility that you are then confronted with are limited by the ability of the diviner, to see and the awareness that they are able to create for themselves and for you. And that is why when we do Ifa divinations, we chant. We chant the entire verse, all the entire verses that the diviner is aware of, all the verses that they have. Because when we chant all of that information, you, as the person who have come to receive the divination, can hear. Ifa says, let those with ears to hear bring them, right? So you bring your ears and you sit on the mat. Those verses that you hear, now you are able to increase your awareness based on what you hear. So it's not just about what the diviner is able to tell you this moment means or what they see for you. You get to participate in increasing your awareness. So the divination is done, and one Odu is revealed. One condition of man is revealed. And this is the condition that corresponds with your life in this moment. All other possibilities, every other potentiality is collapsed. And what you have to consider are the verses that are chanted for you, the awareness, the new awareness that has been created for you. Preparation, intention, and even ritual purity matter when we're talking about divination, because the energy of the diviner influences the paths that are revealed. That's why I say, don't let any old body do a reading for you. If you're paying 13 cents a minute for your reading, then you're probably going to get 13 cents worth of healing, right? If you're playing with the cards, you're playing with your ability to make well-informed and powerful choices in your life. Divination changes things. When the things that you see change, the way you see things changes as well. When the diviner tells you that these are the things that are important, it doesn't matter now whether those are things that you would like or that you enjoy. These are the things now that you must pay attention to. Do you understand that? Ritual is quantum observation. We don't always think about our rituals as being scientific, but we should, particularly when we're talking about Orisa Hoodoo, because there is a scientific approach to all that we do. In Orisa Hoodoo, ritual is energetic measurement. Okay, so we're measuring the energy that is present, and we're calculating the energy that is necessary for us to experience what it is that we desire. And the ritual makes up that difference. Prayer, offerings, affirmations, all of these things collapse possibility into reality. Once the reading has been done and we know what the energetic presence is, as well as the deficits, we are able then to reach into our toolbox for those of us who are practitioners, and even more so for those of us who are priests. And we're able to make up the difference between what we see and what we would like to see. Energy memory is real. The memory of our ancestors that we carry with us for 16 generations, Ifa says. Our own memories, which we know our descendants will experience for 16 generations. And my sisters, if I've said it once, I'm going to say it 1,300 more times. When you are pregnant with a girl child, my sisters, you are carrying your grandchildren. That's how powerful motherhood is. That's how influential and necessary you are. So When you're making decisions, based on the experiences, influenced by, maybe not based on, but you're making decisions influenced by the experiences of your ancestors. And you are making choices and decisions that will affect those coming after you for 16 generations. So be careful what you consume. Be careful what you ponder. Be careful what you accept, because it will have lasting effects in both directions, dear ones. The concept of the crossroads is one that is very big in African spirituality and Hoodoo, right? There are various energies and spirits and deity that govern crossroads energy. You have Eshu, you have Papa Legba. And the crossroads represent non-linear time. The crossroads are that laboratory where those scientists were measuring particles. The crossroads is where things can go in one direction or the other, where energy is coming from one direction and flowing into another, where prayers are allowed to travel to their destination in the ears of those who can help, or where they fizzle and fall to the ground, along with hopes and dreams and every other thing that doesn't have enough energy to push it in the direction that we want for it to go. Choices are made at thresholds in our lives that ripple backward and rush forward and ruminate in the present. So you need to understand that everything that you are doing has already been done. Ask yourself, is this a cycle? Am I innovating? Am I healing? Or am I just repeating cycles that don't heal, but rather hurt me and those coming after me? Those choices that we make ripple backward into what was, into who was. And when that happens, understand that the ancestors, that term gets so well worn in these spiritual environments, but the ancestors, the ones that we actually want to be most closely connected to, is a cloud of consciousness. These are not individuals and people who care what we're doing from moment to moment, but rather a cloud of consciousness, an energetic reservoir that you have authorization to tap into by virtue of your bloodline. And so, when you take the necessary steps and you heal, ancestral healing looks like you being able to more easily tap into that cloud of ancestral genius and that cloud of ancestral consciousness and that cloud of ancestral protection, so that when you are out of alignment and when your efforts do not align with ancestral healing, then it feels like your ancestors are mad at you. It feels like you are unprotected. It feels like you're not being helped because you are not positioned to be able to easily tap into that cloud of consciousness and receive those streams, those downloads, that new awareness. Do you understand? So when we over personify the ancestors, we lose so much. We lose the magic of understanding how to benefit from the lives that were lived before us. Ancestral healing looks like access. It looks like awareness. Rituals reshape how the traumas of our ancestors live in our lineages and how they affect descendants. So you should endeavor to do rituals that increase your awareness and calm your reaction to what you become aware of, so that you're not having knee-jerk reactions and running away from what you see or what you feel. And when you run away, you probably run into more trouble. But you're doing rituals that reveal what those who came before you experienced, what they left and made available for you to be able to tap into and to utilize on your walk. And those rituals should also prop you up, give you strength, give you inspiration and understanding of how to do those things that you have to do using what was already done for you. Repurposing pain as weaponry and preparation, turning pain into preparation, is what ancestral healing looks like. The metaphysical law of vibration is very much connected to what I've been talking about this afternoon. Everything is energy. Energy can be raised, energy can be lowered, but most importantly, reflections, energy can be directed. Be precise about what you're directing your attention to. When your awareness is increased by virtue of divination, be deliberate about what comes next, about what you do with that information, about how you direct your energy. The crystal experiment shows that vibration was split between two particles and shared between them as well. So while they were cut off from one another, they went in their different directions and different decisions were made for them. They still reflected their shared energy. This is true for you and your ancestors, so that when you change, they change. And when you change, those coming after you will also change, because we're just the same souls cycling through. The law of cause and effect, in classic physics, it says that cause comes before effect. But we learned through this experiment and through our understanding, even in African spirituality, we understand that sometimes effect can line up with choices that happen later. Sometimes the effect of something 200 years ago will rear its ugly head in the lives of the descendants in a non-linear manner. Okay? The law of mentalism says that all thought is creative. Thoughts become things. When your awareness is increased by divination, that affects the things that you will see, the things that you will experience, the opportunities that you will choose to take or not, right? It all begins in your mind. Observation of potential can become reality, especially if you're participating in the kinds of readings, psychic readings, readings that have a far-flung intention, readings that endeavor to tell you what's going to happen to you in the future, those type of readings have the ability to really distort choices, and our experience and our ability to really live sovereign lives. So be very careful about allowing those types of readings to be done. Know the system that you are encountering before you sit down for a reading. There are biblical parallels that exist between what I'm talking about this afternoon, and particles of the past. The first verse I would like for you to look at is Psalms 90, chapter 90, verse 4. For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it is past. So this verse affirms God's timeliness and a layered reality. How can 1,000 years feel like yesterday? But it is when you collapse time and you realize that time and space are not real and that everything exists at the same time. I'll let you think about that one. Journal about it and let me know what you come up with, okay? How your understanding grows. Psalm 139, verse 16. Your eyes saw my substance, being yet unformed, and in your book they all were written. What is this talking about? This is talking about our destiny, right? This is like the story in Yoruba cosmology where you're waiting in line for the potter to give you your head, right? The eyes of God knows our substance. And even though we have not been formed, even though we had yet to incarnate, our destiny was already written. It was written in the book of life, it's called, the book of destiny, it's called, the Akashic records, it's called by others, right? The Odu, it's already written. Every possibility that exists in your life and mine as well. And I'll give you one more verse, Proverbs 16, chapter 9. A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. So this is talking about destiny as well. The fact that divine direction, I'm going to simplify it even more. The Bible says that everything that happens, and I'm summarizing, but everything that happens to you happens for you, right? So you can plan all you want to, but you're going to be caught up in a current of destiny, the goal of which is for you to live your best life. And guess what? Sometimes that means that you will have experiences that are not always pleasant. Sometimes there will be lessons that you must necessarily learn. But everything that happens to you happens for you. And let us give thanks and praise for that. So let's talk about a little bit of real world action, decision making. For every choice, a ripple across time occurs. I just explained that to you. I won't belabor it, but for every choice, there's a ripple that happens that expands out forevermore into the realms of possibility. The possibility of what could have happened that led you here, and the possibility that what will happen as a result of what you have done. You must approach divination with reverence reflections. You are not just predicting what's going to happen to you when you have a divination. You are actually shaping, you're actually creating your life as you look at all of the possibilities of what could happen. You're deciding on those things that you are going to consider by considering anything at all. Do you understand that? Awareness is a creative force in our lives. I want you to think about your crystals. If you wear crystals, you see I'm dripping. I got them everywhere, all over my body, all over my house. I love me some crystals. And when you're interacting with crystals, understand that they are memory banks, that they have the ability to store energy, to store understanding, and to create entanglements, to break them as well. This isn't the class for that, but understand that all of these things are possible through the technology of crystals. So, in closing, science shows that reality is participatory, it is not fixed. We create our reality by our participation in it and by the awareness that we gain from activities like divination. Yoruba cosmology affirms that destiny is chosen before we incarnate, but it collapses through divination. Orisa Hoodoo teaches that ritual observation shapes both the past, the present, and the future. Metaphysical law teaches that vibration, cause, and intention shape reality, and the Bible affirms that God stands outside of us, inside of us, as well as where we have yet to experience. All is one. Priestess?
Ooh, I was talking too. As we go into this next segment, make sure that you still have a clear mind. And listen, I caught it. Thank you, Mama. Thank you. Make sure that you have a clear mind and open heart. Actually, make sure that you have your feet planted on the ground, aye, the earth, within this next segment. Because you remember, we're talking about three-dimensional healing. We're talking about spirit. We're talking about your body. We're talking about your mind. So tap in to the earth within you. Feel your body being anchored as you take deep breaths in to help you align and release any forms of resistance, because you may have heard some things that might have triggered how you show up ancestrally. You might have heard some things that may have triggered how you need to adjust, how you show up spiritually. And you're supported here. This is a safe space, but ground yourself in the process. Understand again that the memory of your ancestors are literally, physically, spiritually within you, watching, waiting, teaching you new things. Understand that this is part of how you're able to access the ancestral treasury. And when I speak about the ancestral treasury, understand that I am talking about the access of consciousness that you have for your bloodline to do whatever you need to do to push forward. Whether that is making sure you're doing the same healing recipes that grandmama did, so now you're in the hospital. You got the same teachings and sermons that your granddad did, so now you're in the church somehow. You came from business moguls that had, LLC after LLC after nonprofit building out the community. So now you're working on daycares and other access for your community to grow. Also, the fortitude to keep going and the strength and the resilience. Again, this is a mind, body, soul understanding that at the very minimum, your spirit has a vibration, it has a frequency, and it has intention. And we know that healing begins with alignment because our consciousness precedes the biochemistry aspects that are to follow. Okay, your heart generates the strongest rhythmic electronic magnetic field in your body, okay, that's able to help regulate, signal messages throughout your immune and nervous system. Understanding that spirit alignment has to happen so the body receives the signals of safety, of wholeness, of resilience. Understanding from an ancestral point of view, again, every prayer and meditation literally pushes into your ancestral treasury. That's a deposit. That's a frequency. And every positive frequency that you generate or deposit helps not just you, but again, those coming after you. So when we say the same prayers that grandmama them prayed over you, that your mama prays over you, has carried this far, the same prayers that you will pray over your children and they'll pray over theirs. That's part of it. Understanding that your spiritual connection is literally the first deposit into the treasury. Understanding that this is not an optional or, again, something that you can just bypass to get rich or find that lover or do whatever the fuck you want to do. It's literally shaping out how your body and mind are going to follow everything else. Speaking of the body, we understand again that your body is the physical instrument in which spirit is able to manifest. Where the memory is already encoded in your DNA, your cells, that beautiful melanin, right? Or understand by being focused in our thoughts because we're practicing positive aspects of neuroplasticity. We understand that we are making the changes needed for our neural pathways to align. I spoke earlier about having everything carry in on us, the same prayers that are carrying us from generation to generation. We also have to understand what carries with us physically too. Specifically as melanated individuals, that stress from trauma, from oppression, from scarcity, from things that were stolen from us. So each conscious action that you do afterwards how you speak, how you move, what you eat, what you drink, that starts to create new instructions within yourselves. So it starts to rewrite the history. So you won't carry that into the next, because you were already told that, baby girl, you carry your grandbaby right now. One of the highest honors that you can receive in this life, mother of any name, but especially that of a grandmother. Your life is so grand, you were able to see and to hold and to nurture your babies' babies. We're speaking about the terms of making sure that you know that it's not just spiritual. Yes, it is, but it's ancestral, of course, but it's actually personal as hell. So when we say, come on to this free ritual, so you can get into alignment, so you can start to understand and to tap into those energies, so you and yours will be good. We're saying, come in and take this opportunity to increase your personal vibration and your frequency with your bloodline. That's what we're saying, right? Understanding, again, the body is the first altar, and every conscious act is a deposit into the treasury. And it doesn't just affect you, it affects those behind you, those watching you. And understanding that when we have those moments of resilience, those moments where we are creating restoration for ourselves, those moments when we are allowing healing to transmute back to the ancestors. Because when we heal ourselves, we heal those. We understand the law of coherence within this, okay? It's also important to understand within this too. Give me 1 second. It's also important for us to understand too that when we are aligning with these energies, these ancestral energies, we are making sure that we are doing it in a safe way, in a safe space. And you don't know what that looks like, again, you can join our private community. Within the first weeks of joining, you are welcome to join my free mentorship, which I go into details of all of the aspects of what we've gone over today, intently starting with creating that your own ancestral ritual to help align with your ancestors, right? Having the guidance to make sure that you are getting these messages and understanding these frequencies coherently. What's also is important to understand that some of the ways that we can continue to transform is, again, through ritual. Okay, so we talked about prayer. Now we're going to talk about ritual a little bit, because we know that, again, it's a structured practice that allows us to align with our higher purpose, with our spiritual principles, and with the healing of ourselves and our community. We know that rituals are a mean to communicate with the Orisa, forces of nature, to seek guidance and our blessings, right? And we understand that when we have our focused intention really directed at specific energy, we will achieve whatever outcome we set out. Again, this is talking about the law of vibration, with understanding that everything has its own frequency and rituals alter the frequency, but also understanding with the law of correspondence that we are also corresponding ourselves to be present and able to receive what is in front of us so we can make the desirable change needed, right? We see this with prayer starting out. You got to pray. You got to know how to pray. And prayer is a ritual as well. Okay. So let's be very clear. The prayer in general is vibration. Okay. It's your word, sound, power, intentionally being transmuted through biomagnetic fields through your ancestral treasury. Okay. Again, I already talked about the heart being one of the strongest rhythmic systems in the body to help establish and give life to the prayer. And we understand that coherent prayer leads to lower cortisol, right? It improves immune markers within our body, and it shifts our perception from fear to agency. Studies have shown this, literally published as recently as 2023. So when we talk about not having fear, because it's an Ifa truth to not have fear. When we talk about be anxious about nothing, but pray about everything, which the Bible clearly states, this is literally what I'm speaking on. And again, I'm giving a biomedical point of view as well into this conversation. So again, you can understand what I'm saying. Again, because this is an interdisciplinary approach. So when I just said, make sure your heart is in it, make sure that you know what you need to do to make sure that you are saying exactly what you want to experience within your prayer. Make sure that you are actually believing it and making sure that your heart is in it. And I literally told you the ancestral benefits because it's the aspect within the ancestral treasury that's deposit. But again, studies have shown Black women, it's gonna help that heart, it's gonna help that stress, which are the leading causes of death anyway. Hypertension, any aspects of coronary disease and disorders is the leading cause of death anyway. So Black women, when I say pray with your whole heart, not one based in fear, not one based in that's begging, but one that is based on authority, one that is claiming and reclaiming who you are and what you came to do. Because you know who walks with you, you know where your help comes from. Standing in that because they brought you this far. So please understand that when we are saying pray first, and make sure that when you pray, that prayer is so solid. Because again, before we add any herbs, because even with herbs, you still got to enchant, which is praying. Same with candles. Any other aspect of ritual, the basis of that is pray. When a priestess has a problem, she prays. My godmother says the same PR that's in problem is the same PR that's in priestess. So understand that. That's when I say when a priestess has a problem, she prays. I have a class on that. I literally have it for free because it's so important to craft your prayers in a way that you are, yes, exactly, declare what we're trying to do and where we're trying to move. Declare life and healing over myself, over my lineage, despite this political climate, despite that boss, despite that coworker, despite that baby daddy, despite that baby mama, despite whoever the fuck and whatever the fuck, because I have declared how to move using the energy that I have in motion. My prayer. Okay? So, again, when you are doing these things within ritual, within your prayer, you are releasing the past so you can speak on the restoration of your healing. You are able to move and be moved in a way that creates ancestral change to the cellular level within your body, but also the metaphysical level in Olarun, again, which is heaven. Okay? So, prayer changes things, not just in your life, but in your body and your mind. Making sure that you are regulating yourself, your emotions, your mind, so you can be present. It's important that we are able to be aware of the law of vibration. Again, everything has a frequency, and healing involves restoration and harmony to these frequencies. The law of correspondence, okay? Patterns repeat across different levels, healing all at once, and they can influence others, okay? The law of cause and effect, because for every action, there's a reaction, whether it be positive or negative, instant or delayed. Healing requires us to address those root causes of our healing, whatever it may be, okay? And the law of mentalism, starting with the understanding of neuroplasticity, because your mind shapes your reality. And the healing begins with mental alignment, okay? It is important that we understand all is one, okay? Everything vibrates at the most measurable frequencies here. And it's important to understand the reflection that you see in me, I see in you, and vice versa, which is why we have these conversations, to make sure that we are in alignment with each other, make sure that we can do what we need to do, and make sure that we know that as we become fluent in these laws, we're able to speak to our healing, we're able to understand how our choices are being effective and how our thoughts are actually bringing peace of mind to every aspect of our life. Understanding also that, faith being the substance of all things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, you understand the belief of shaping your reality, okay? And Ori supports this. And understanding, again, your mind power shapes your existence from a cultural, religious, metaphysical, spiritual, and physical point of view, okay? And understand that mindfulness and visualization techniques will help trigger some of these measurable outcomes, especially within your immune function, especially within your stress reduction. So you can start to ask yourself the areas that you feel stuck and uncertain. Start to visualize how these things are making you feel. And what did your body sense during this? And is it fear because you're afraid of going through with it? Is it fear of the unknowing because you didn't divine or you don't know how to divine? But then to both, you have the tools and technology. You can book any of us. We can get that right for you. We have a whole training institution to help start these conversations, okay? What is important to know throughout this whole conversation is that it is key to understanding that the principles of observation, faith, vibration, and ritual translate into your own actions and choices, which turn into habits that shape your life, your descendants, and your legacy. We know this through knowledge and through transformation, And we know that we can integrate these principles spiritually through prayer, ritual meditation, mentally through choosing to create and cultivate positive thoughts and affirmations, physically through diet, exercise, going to the doctor, speaking to your root doctor if you need any other holistic support. In conclusion, my name is Reverend Priestess Osun Kemibi Ifa Kemi. My godmother and I have spent this time sharing with you all how to integrate within the aspects of past, present, and future through divination, destiny, and ancestral healing. Within this conversation, we were able to help share how to respond to the observations that you are experiencing within your reality, understanding how to use ritual as medicine, the spiritual laws and structure that is provided, and the access to destiny, because all you have is eternal now. If any of these topics were interested to you and you would like to know more, you are more than welcome to join my free mentorship. Join learnorishahoodoo.com. Within that free mentorship, you'll have access to some of the things that we have discussed already, starting out with prayer, changing your aspects of neuroplasticity. You also have the option to apply for my other mentorship programs for general mentorship, practitioner training, and priest training within the Orisa Hoodoo doctrine. Coming up, we do have a Get Your Life this Tuesday, where we are going into detail about how to get your life for the month of October. Be on the lookout for that within our Facebook groups and within our community. And you can also purchase the textbook in the description below. If you were blessed by this reading at any, baby, this ain't a reading. Well, I mean, some of y'all might have got read. But if you were blessed by this discussion in any way, shape, or form, you are more than welcome to send a love donation to myself and my godmother, Reverend Priestess, Reverend Priestess Osun Funke iyanifa. It's on the screen. And mine is on the screen as well. I'm glad you were able to enjoy this. Please share this video, like, comment, share with others, and let's get it together. Also, if you wanted to understand a more physical approach with this topic, you are also welcome to attend my Rooted Remedies Spirit Lab at the end of November. Within this, I'll be teaching you how to understand spiritual anatomy with the concept of spirit dolls. Okay, so all of my Rooted Remedies labs are intensive. We're there all day, and y'all are getting custom healing, integrations, and education tools and supplies from a root doctor that is a natural medicine doctoral candidate and biomedical health scientist. My name is Reverend Priestess Osun Kemibi Ifa Kemi, aka the Soul Doctor. I am a priestess, root doctor, godchild of Reverend Priestess Osun Funke iyanifa, and everything you need to get right, mind, body, and soul. If you are blessed, you can book me. Link is in the description. If you need anything else, you are joining mentorship. Until next time, peace, like the river.
Nobody talks about you, then you want